Welcome to Navigating the Aftermath, the podcast where we explore the journey of rebuilding and rediscovery after life storms. Join us as we delve into stories of resilience, triumph, and transformation, offering insights and inspiration to guide you through your own path of healing and growth. Hello, and welcome to Navigating the Aftermath. Today, we're talking about navigating the aftermath of surviving a car crash. I'm going to share my story and what got me thinking about it 17 years later. And that is all about the impossible becoming possible. There is a certain magic in the air when it happens, when the impossible becomes possible. It's like seeing the northern lights in May in San Francisco. What? I didn't have to go to Alaska to witness northern lights. They just came to me in my backyard. With all the solar storms, something awesome happened. And that got me thinking that all of the things that were once impossible that now are possible. And one of the biggest things for me is driving safely, easily, and with joy. I also thought that dreams do come true. And that's all about the moments that make us feel truly alive. And the hope and perseverance do light up the darkest paths and reveal the world where anything is possible. Last night, my daughter and I went on a mini road trip to watch the northern lights. At midnight, we ended up driving in the fog, listening to the ocean, and breathing fragrant air. That was a lot of fun, not what we intended to have because we were there for the clear skies to watch the northern lights. But life really has the way of showing up in different ways and really bringing what we truly need, not necessarily what we want. At some point, for about a quarter of a mile, I could barely see the road through a very dense fog. I slowly followed the winding markings of Highway 1. It got me thinking that this drive represented life's curves. It was nerve-wracking, but what could I do besides moving forward? Press the brakes in the middle of the road? Find a turnout and wait for the better weather conditions till what, next morning, next evening, next week? Cry for help? Nope. The only way was forward, out of the density of the fog, over the hill. Something that would have terrified me before was now an adventure worth going for. I had a lot of fun. And my daughter was encouraging me from the back seat, and I was confident in my car and in my ability to get us safely to the clearer part of the road. And for someone who survived a car crash as a passenger at 19, it is a big deal. I wasn't that brave for many, many years. And if someone had told me I could be calm and confident driving safely in dense fog on a winding road in the middle of the night, I would have laughed in disbelief. And I would be laughing hard. It was once impossible. With all the lessons learned from life curveballs, it became possible. With all the perseverance, with all the resilience I gained over the years. And seeing the end goal, knowing the steps to get there, and believing it is possible during the setbacks and failures. And all of this makes all the difference. So turning the impossible into the possible requires a special kind of perseverance. It's the kind that sees beyond failure, beyond setbacks, and focuses on the glimmers of hope. Also celebrating little achievements, little things, and I will dive into it in just a little bit. Thomas Edison, we all heard this gazillion times, but I'm going to repeat that anyway. He endured thousands of failed attempts before inventing the light bulb, and he famously said, "I have not failed. I have found 10,000 ways that won't work." And his words do remind, even though we hear them time and time again, that each step, even the misstep, are part of a beautiful dance towards success. And it is a dance because sometimes there are 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. And it was once impossible for me to even be in the car without having a panic attack. I survived a car crash at age 19, and it took a toll on me physically and psychologically. I was driving with my then boyfriend, and the road was a little bit slippery because we just had a very dense fog before that, and a lot of drizzle. And he was speeding up in the turn. And there was a big, long, tall concrete wall with a lot of flowers right beside it, meaning there are a lot of people who died there. And also, behind that concrete wall was a huge billboard. And also, there was a cliff with large trees, like really tall and big, chunky ones, and thinner ones. And there was a very narrow path right behind that wall that led to very thin trees, very dense, but there were small young trees. Like my dad said, that the angel carried me on its wings. And I truly believe that when he dragged me to the scene of the car crash. So what happened was my then boyfriend, he was speeding up and then he just lost the control of the car. And we started going off the road right past this concrete wall, right past this huge billboard, and going past by the billboard, the stand, or whatever it is called, really knocked the rear view windows down. That caused them to break the passenger seat, the passenger seat window. And I remember the smell, I remember the fear, and the smell of death. That for me, that was that the smell of the brakes, the smell of the breaking of the car parts, for the lack of a better description, and the rubber of the tires, right? That smell. And the fear smells something different from any other smells. Do you agree? If you ever experienced that, leave me a comment and tell me what death smells to you. We miraculously ended up hanging over the cliff, and those young trees held us. The car was totaled. My window at the passenger seat was gone. I looked down and I was bleeding because all of this triplex glass and the very sharp pieces of glass of mirror, of the rear view mirror, were shattered over me. And on top of that, I was a very smart teenager and I didn't buckle. So I hit my head against the windshield. I broke it. And they were asking afterwards, the paramedics were asking me if I lost consciousness. I don't know. The next thing I remember being so fearful when we were going off the road about what happens to my family. I was thinking about my grandparents. I was thinking about my parents and my friends and all of the things that I wanted to do and I wanted to achieve, and I probably wouldn't have an opportunity to do so. And then all of a sudden, looking down, seeing my blood, and then I was standing next to the car. So I probably crawled out of the window because I was scared that I noticed the peripheral vision. I noticed that the cliff was right there. And my boyfriend at the time, he had one scratch, literally one scratch. So I was standing next to the car, looking around and really checking in with myself. Am I still alive? And then when I realized I didn't feel any pain. I didn't feel anything. The next thing I looked down and my boyfriend was kneeling and asking for forgiveness. He was crying and he was begging for my forgiveness. I could not understand why, up until much later, that turned out that he bought his driver's license. He did not pass the test. He falsified his documents. And then he sped up in the stern to get before my parents to our place. So we could kind of like race in with my dad, so to speak. So he really had to beg for forgiveness. And then I was standing there. All of a sudden, my parents showed up. I don't remember if I called them, if my boyfriend called them. And then the sirens And the eyes of the policemen, the eyes of the paramedics who arrived, and they told me, "You're one of the luckiest ones. Congratulations. Happy birthday. Today is your second birthday." And they were asking me if I was feeling anything. Turned out I was bleeding all over, and I then, like, afterwards, I noticed that I broke the windshield. So I still have all the scars, and they were carrying me to the car, to the paramedics car, to the ambulance, and that was so surreal. I didn't feel myself, like, I didn't feel my body. I didn't feel any pain. I didn't feel any fear. I remember my parents standing in shock, and I felt shame. I felt guilt, and I felt terrified for what is out there for me, that my parents would be so mad. So I went to the hospital, and they had to do like a surgery, and I was fully awake. It was local anesthesia. They took out the glass, and then later on, in couple of weeks later, I had to go back because I felt the pieces of the glass underneath my skin, somehow they got into there. And then I had a big scar on my forehead, and I had a very bad concussion. So I had to be in bed, be like on the bed rest with no TV, no screens for about a month, and a very limited company. And my parents did all the best. They begged the doctors to release me under their care. So I didn't have to be in the hospital. And there was so much happening in me that it was too much. I was fainting a lot. My brain couldn't wrap around what happened. My thoughts were racing, and the only thing I could do is stare in the ceiling. And I remember really just dreaming about driving myself, not relying on anybody else, and driving with ease and freedom and having a blast, having fun. I really wanted that. I really wanted to override that terrifying experience. The relationship with my parents were really tough at the time. They didn't really process that very well. And as a parent now, I understand what an awful thing they went through. They almost lost their only daughter. But back then, I didn't understand. So I thought I would go to my grandparents' house, which was about an hour away, which meant I could take a train or I could ask my cousin to drive me there. Taking public transportation in my condition was not an option. So my cousin came and picked me up. And that was after the month of the bed rest. So I could start moving, I could start going places. And I had panic attacks. And he drove so slowly. We took so many stops. It took us 5 hours to drive the 1 hour distance. He was so patient with me, and I'm ever so grateful for him. And I was thinking, this is not the life I want. And I gotta do better. I gotta overcome this. And my dad at some point dragged me to the scene of the car crash and really showed me that I had the second chance in life. I really had to pull my act together because I had a very late transition into teenagehood at 19. I was a perfect child up until I wasn't. And it almost costed me life. It almost costed my parents losing their child. So I really had to reevaluate my whole life and really understand what was important, what was not, what I was ought to do in this life, because that was not the life I wanted to live, for sure. So fast forward, I came to the United States. I received my driver's license after third attempt of passing the test because I was so anxious. I didn't want to do anything wrong. So I was super tired and just like forgetting things. So it took me 3 attempts to pass my driver's test. And luckily, I had a good teacher during my learning time. And I, oh my goodness, I was practicing my skills on the stick shift on the hills of San Francisco. I did not make my life easy. And luckily, I have a drive, pun intended, to overcome my fears and push myself to get the results I want, even if it's like beyond my limitations, like big time. So I took one block at a time and one stop sign at a time. I was losing ignition all the time because of that crazy hills. If you ever driven in San Francisco on the Visitor Street, you know what I'm talking about. So again, I had a very patient teacher by my side, and when I felt overwhelmed, we could stop, take a breather, I could take a walk and shake it off and continue the lesson. And then when I got my license, I felt so just over the moon. It was one of the biggest achievements of my life. And I started taking Friday drives because I had Fridays off from work and school. And I was going to places, driving to the ocean away from city traffic, and I was going slowly and steadily. And of course, I avoided driving when it was foggy because I just did not feel comfortable at all. So the winding roads of Highway 1 became very, very familiar to me. And that was not easy about 15 years ago. That was still almost impossible for me. And it took one drive at a time. There were so many times I had to get out of the car, breathe, ground myself, calm myself down, get back in the car because what else could I do? And there were no GPSs out there. They were super expensive. I got lost many, many times. And I really learned how to embrace being lost as an adventure. So again, I thought it was impossible for me to achieve the ease of driving, but I enjoyed that freedom the driving provided so much. It was such a big conflict. So after 15 years of driving different cars on different terrains and distances, one morning, while driving to work in the middle lane, something was missing. I couldn't understand what that was. I couldn't put my finger on it. And then I started asking myself, like, what was that? And then it hit me. My fear was gone for the first time. And for the longest time, I couldn't drive by concrete dividers on the freeway because they intimidated me. They reminded me of that concrete wall that I passed by at age 19. And that wall left so many scars on me that I get reminded of that incident, that accident, that crash every single day. So I was so used to having my anxiety and fear in the car with me. They were my passengers. I got used to them. They kept me company for so long. And it took me a minute to realize that they were gone. And it happened only 4 years ago. So for many years, I was driving with them. So to test it, I changed to the left lane next to the concrete divider. And nothing. I felt free. I was finally driving with ease. Something that once seemed impossible, and I mean impossible, now was easy. Easy! No way. And it did not happen overnight. But when I realized the difference, it felt miraculous. It felt like it did happen overnight. And I'm sure I'm not alone on this journey. And if you experienced a life-altering event that left you questioning what was possible for you, and you had some limitations because of that event, and you overcame them, you were ahead in the game, like big time. I had help and support in pushing these limitations and learning these life lessons. It was hard to trust being in the car with someone else behind the wheel. Frankly, it still is. There's only a handful of people I feel comfortable being a passenger in their cars. My accident taught me to be very conscious and cautious about who I get in the car with. And this is the legacy I'm leaving to my daughter. I'm teaching her. I'm showing her my scars. Let that be a reminder for her, and let be that a teaching moment for her. So not her or I go through this horrifying, horrifying time, because that not only took toll on me, right, and my parents, and it took toll on my relationships with my parents for many years. And that was a huge life lesson for me. I really changed my life. It was like a jolted out of the old ways. That was a huge, huge pivotal moment for me. So if you made the impossible possible once, it's more likely you will do it again. Taking risks and taking calculated risks, right? Again and again and again. And if you celebrate small wins and take one foot in front of the other, taking breaks, going as slowly as you need to, not rushing through these changes and transformations, right? We cannot make impossible possible overnight, even if we really want to. It is a process. It's sometimes a very lengthy process. Look at me, it took me almost 2 decades. And it all starts with taking the first step towards the dream, goal, or desire. And once we learn how to believe in ourselves, the sky is the limit. The possibilities are endless. So if you already overcame that, like, and made impossible possible, the fear that you feel, you can push through it. You know what is a good fear and what is not a good fear. And by good fear, I mean the voice in your head telling you, don't go there, it's dangerous. And another not very helpful fear is, oh, you're going to fail. Oh, you're going to have setbacks. What if nobody will listen to your podcast? What if nobody will take you seriously? Whatever it can be. So the journey from the impossible to possible is more than a series of achievements. It's a symphony of the heart, soul, and mind. It's a testament to our capacity for hope, our resilience, and our boundless creativity. It's about the stories that make us laugh, cry, and believe in magic. And as we stand at the threshold of new possibilities, let's remember that every dream, no matter how impossible it seems, starts with a single step forward. And let's cherish the moments when our hearts whisper, what if? And our souls respond with, why not? While our mind is screaming, no way. And because of all of these moments, we find the true essence of making the impossible possible. Now it's your turn. Tell me, what did you make possible that felt impossible once? I bet you have awesome stories to share, and I cannot wait to read your stories. I'm wishing you all the best. And I am here in your corner when you make impossible possible and really sticking to it, going through all of the setbacks and failures and attempts and all of the wins and ups and downs. I'm wishing you all the best, giving you a big hug, and we'll hear and see each other soon. Bye. Thank you for joining us on Navigating the Aftermath. Remember, no matter how challenging the journey may seem, you are not alone. Subscribe for more empowering stories, practical wisdom to help you navigate life's twists and turns. Until next time, keep moving forward with courage and conviction.